but they ran into that juggernaut known as my Brooklyn Nets. Oh.
I got a really upset tweet the other day that you say teams are my team, and he thought like that you're being completely serious every time you say my.
I say a lot of teams.
I know. He listed like 10 of them.
Yeah, it's a running gag.
I know. He was really upset. He's like, how can Dan have
How
my
long has
Nets?
he listened to the show that he wouldn't know?
Actually, a long time, because he listed like 12 schools. 12. He's like, yeah, my Gonzaga Bulldogs. He's like, how can he be a Gonzaga fan and a Nets fan?
My Wofford Terriers.
Yeah, see.
What makes that so hilarious, too, is that he's in his car, and every time you do, like, my, Pittsburgh Steelers, he's like, he did it again!
It's got another
How
team!
does he get away with this?
He called you a bandwagon jumper.
By saying my Brooklyn Nets?
Yeah. He's like, how can he like a team on the West Coast and this team on the East Coast?
I do watch a lot of sometimes inferior basketball, and then I will mockingly say, they're my team. Yes, Paulie.
Also, you've kind of given up your fandom, your childhood grade school fandom. So you kind of roll with teams you find interesting or have fun storylines for whatever length of time.
Oh, I had to drop my allegiance when I started doing this full time.
I've been working with you for a long time, and you even back then, I'd be like, the Reds just won 4 in a row. You're like, super. I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, no, those days are gone.
The last time I rooted when I was at ESPN was 1990, the Cincinnati Reds. I'm on SportsCenter, and I forget who was next to me. They were on camera, and I believe it was Joe Oliver with a double down the line against the Oakland A's. And I jumped out of my seat as I'm looking at the monitor, and I was cheering quietly, but I was going, like raising my hand. Last time I did it. Because my mom would say, Danny, why don't you say nice things about the Reds or the Bengals or the University of Cincinnati? I said, Mom, that's not what I do. My job is to be unbiased. And it's one of the hardest things I ever had to do is stop rooting for teams that I grew up rooting for. Peter King, NBCSports.com, NFL columnist. Check out his column, Must Reading, Football Morning in America, every Monday exclusively on NBCSports.com. Good morning, Pete. How are you?
Hey, Dan. That's very, very interesting what you say about rooting. I mean, because everybody asks me all the time, hey, what's your favorite team?
Yeah.
And I say, well, I root for the Red Sox because I don't cover baseball. But they say, okay, yeah, but what about football? And I said, I haven't rooted for a football team since I, started covering the Bengals for the Cincinnati Enquirer. And people are always shocked at that. What do you mean you don't root? And I said, how the hell can you root and cover the sport?
But it makes it easier for me because I'm rooting for a story. I just want the story.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. I always root. If somebody says to me, like when I was a kid, I grew up in Connecticut, and I was a Giants fan in football. My dad was a big Giants fan and all that. And so now, if the Giants are playing anybody, whoever, it doesn't matter. The only thing I care about is the story. I mean, I could care less if they won. I got to tell you a very, very quick story. Minnesota Vikings against the Green Bay Packers at the old Metrodome once. I'm covering the game. Vikings win. I forget the circumstances, but it was a heartbreaking loss for the Packers. And I go in afterwards. In those days, Sports Illustrated shows up. It's a big game. And so I go in to see Mike Holmgren, and he's like really down. And at one point during the course of the conversation, he just looks at me and he goes, "You don't care, do you?" Like about his pain. And it was sort of a wistful, quasi-angry thing. And I just said, "No, I don't. I can't. How can I care? Like, what do you want me to care if Denny Green wins or if Mike Holmgren? How can I do that? I can't do that anyway."
Well, I care about your pain if it helps me with my story.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. I still go back and I tell people, the Mets and the Red Sox, when the ball goes through Buckner's legs, and it didn't matter who won. I was probably rooting a little bit more for the Red Sox because of the story,
right.
But that crazy Mets team was so fun to cover. And I'm sitting there watching Bill Buckner answer all of these questions after letting the ball go through his legs. And I couldn't help but feel sorry. But then I was also happy that, I had a story. The story was Bill Buckner. And so you just extract that out of these games. and you sort of leave everything else, to the wayside here. But it makes it easier. If I said I'm a Bengal fan and you're a Steeler fan, and I go on SportsCenter and I report on the Steelers, then you go, well, he's a Bengal fan. So
of course,
you can't do it.
Hey, look, and it won't matter. It won't matter what I say or what you say. Everybody's going to think what they think. Like, the whole free world thinks, oh my God, he's in the tank for the Patriots. He loves the Patriots. There's absolutely nothing I can do to either disprove or say anything. People are just going to think what they're going to think. So that's just the way life is.
Yeah, I know. Boo-hoo. Nobody's, having any sympathy for it.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.